Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, Tracy Wilson and Nicole Hayes join us. They're with American Wild Horse Conservation, along with Kris Thompson, who is a wild horse advocate. They're here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers. As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
Story County is leading Nevada. Home of the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, Google, Tesla, Panasonic, and other world-leading companies. Story County provides thousands of tech, advanced manufacturing, and logistics careers for Nevadans. We're diversifying and driving Nevada's economy and generating millions in tax revenue and billions in economic activity across northern Nevada. Story County is leading Nevada's future.
Welcome to the Ahern Boutique Hotel, where luxury and warmth come together in the heart of Las Vegas.
We take pride in offering a one-of-a-kind experience for both locals and tourists.
Join us for handcrafted cocktails and an unforgettable experience.
Joel's Chop House, the perfect place to savor views of the Las Vegas Strip.
Satisfy your cravings at the Ahern Chocolate Shop.
No smoking, no resort fees, and the parking is always free. The Ahern Luxury Boutique Hotel is your home away from home.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad on No Holds Barred Political Forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're going to have a great show today. We're talking about wild horses, especially here in Nevada, with Tracy Wilson. She is Nevada State Director of the American Wild Horse Conservation. Nicole Hayes is Conservation Scientist with the American Wild Horse Conservation. And Kris Thompson, new title, Business Development and Transaction Specialist with L. Lance Gilman Commercial Real Estate Services. Pleasure to have you all here.
Thank you.
Let's start out with Kris, because the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, which you helped run for a very long time, has an unbelievable amount of wild horses out there, and pretty much everybody out there loves them. Explain the story of the wild horses at TRI.
So it's great. It started with, like everything at TRI, it starts with Lance Gilman, 25 years ago, who when he first got out to TRI and there was nothing there, he hooked up with the early wild horse advocates, Lacey J. Dalton, that started the Let It Run Foundation, and formed a close partnership. And Lance, in the early years, went to the mattresses a number of times to help the wild horse advocates and protect the wild horses with the principle of no roundups, no removals. And it was privately owned land, so that helped. And then as each company would come in, Lance would show off the wild horses to the buyers, to all these big tech decision makers coming in, and they loved them. All the Elon Musk, the Jeff Burns, the Rob Roys, when they would see the wild horses, it just kind of touched their heart. I think they saw themselves kind of in the wild horse mode, kind of a rogue out there running free and independent and self-reliant. And so as the park has matured and we get all these Fortune 100 and top tech companies in the world in the park, the support from the wild horses from these tech companies has really grown. Watering stations, access for the wild horse conservation groups, American Wild Horse Conservation, to come out and do their job that we'll talk about. But they recognize how majestic, how precious, and how iconic these horses are as a symbol of Nevada. And you know, the best example I have is that I had a group of about 30 top government and business folks from South Korea come in. And we were on a bus, and I was on the microphone giving the tour. And there's only 2 times they wanted to stop the bus and get out and take photos. Once was at an overlook point where you could see the Tesla Gigafactory. And then the other was on Peru Drive in TRI, where they all started clamoring and said, stop the bus, because there was a band of wild horses, and they wanted to take those wild horses. And so, yes, the partnership between TRI and the companies there and these good folks, and the protections and the recognition of how precious these wild horses are, has been there since the start of TRI.
All right. And thanks to Kris and Lance, the companies have been fabulous to work with. I mean, they've really, almost all of them have really gone out of the way to work with us to figure out a system that works for us to enter their property, to access the horses that might be on their property, to do the fertility control. We work with them. Some of them have higher security measures than others, as you can imagine, with a tech company. And so, you know, we work with them on whatever they need from us to make that okay. And so it's been really good.
All right, so let me bring up the other side of the coin so that people are aware. There are obviously people who are very concerned about wild horses, especially here in Nevada. Ranchers are concerned about, you know, the fact that horses are out there eating their crops or food that will be going to their cows, etc. Homeowners who are concerned about wild horses. What are your thoughts about, let's start with those 2 topics.
So I think another thing to realize in this is that we just keep developing land. And so we have, especially in the Reno area, built more and more where these horses have lived for usually several hundreds of years. And so that's kind of where you have that conflict when you're talking about homeowners and having horses. We built where they lived, and because horses are relatively long-lived, they can live up to 30 years, they still view that as their home, and so they don't understand human infrastructure. And then we plant beautiful lawns, and we water those. And we wonder why the horses are in the neighborhoods. It's like, well, you're giving them the buffet. And so we've worked really diligently, especially with the city of Reno, and Tracy can talk more on this, but to put up fences. And really, you know, Nevada is a fence-out state. And so if you don't want any kind of wildlife or livestock on your property, it's your duty to actually fence them out. And so working with that, especially keeping public safety in mind, to try to keep the wild horses wild and to keep them out of neighborhoods. And so that's really a critical step, and the city of Reno has really been so beneficial in helping with that. In terms of kind of Nevada on a broader scale, horses evolved in North America. So about 56 million years ago, the evolution of the horse started here in North America. And actually recent studies have shown that horses only went extinct about 6,000 years ago. And so on an evolutionary time scale, it's a blink of an eye. It's almost meaningless. And the horses that went extinct here in North America are the exact same species that are now back in North America. And so viewing them as other, as this less than and undeserving, I think really is unjustified, because they're the exact same species that evolved here well before people were here, 56 million years ago. And so I think switching that viewpoint to viewing them as wildlife. And if you look at that by numbers, horses are one of the least abundant wildlife across the West. You know, we only have 66 to 70,000 wild horses on public land. And if you look at how much wildlife is on public land, that's very different. And so I think it's almost just switching the viewpoint. I think you'll give a better idea of their place in the environment.
When you look at population of the horses and their ability to multiply, that's been one of the concerns that's been publicized. What have you guys been doing in terms of trying to control the population growth of the horses?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we need to start with to understand anytime you put a boundary around a species and say this is the only area you can live in, now we have to manage the population. You can't just walk away and say good luck. I mean, well, I mean you can, but it's not going to end well for the species or the land. So we are not saying leave them alone, don't touch them. What we're saying is let's manage them in a more humane way than rounding them up with helicopters, ripping them from their homes, separating families, with doing something like humane, reversible, immunocontraceptive fertility control. And that's what we're doing. It's called PZP, or
porcine zona pellucida.
It's a protein, and it Nicole can talk way more about the science, but the simple version is it changes the outside of the egg so that it can't be fertilized. So it's non-hormonal, it's reversible, it wears off over time. They do require a booster, and that's one of the pushbacks. It's like, oh, well, then you got to get out and boost them. Yes, but we've been doing it now. We're in our 6th year. We stabilized the population. We're now in population decline on the Virginia range. It's the largest wild horse fertility control program in the world, right here in northern Nevada. We had the first 4 years of the data was analyzed, peer-reviewed, and published. So what we're trying to demonstrate is that there is a better way. This PZP has been studied and used for almost 40 years. It's well researched, but it hadn't been used on a large scale in a large landscape. And so that's what we sought to do. And so that's what we've been doing. And we get a lot of pushback. It's like, well, the horses around Reno area, they're used to humans. Sure, but we're also doing it in Cedar Mountain, Utah, which it's been said it can't be done there, and we're doing it. So I think there is a way to move forward with doing it. And we have, we have the most wild horses in Nevada. I think it's almost half, or just over half, of the population of wild horses in the West exists in our state. We also have the most public land in the West, so that makes sense. So seeing fertility control implemented at a meaningful scale is really what we would like to see going forward, is find a way to manage these animals on the land that they live on so that we don't have to spend all this taxpayer money removing them with helicopters and all the trauma and all the controversy. Let's find a better way.
All right, so that brings up, Nicole, the federal government's involvement. Roundups, sales, things like that. And the scenes of these overcrowded corrals. What's the current situation with that? Because we really haven't heard that much about that in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so the federal government right now, so they set what's called an AML. And that's essentially the amount of horses they'll allow within a designated area. And they set that by looking at how much forage that's going to be there. And they allocate a certain amount of that forage to horses. They allocate a certain amount of that forage to livestock. And then that's how they come up with that number. And because we're over that number, the federal government has been taking horses off the range, using helicopters primarily, and stockpiling them kind of in middle America, where they have pastures that the government pays for the horses to be at, or they have corrals, so smaller areas they keep the horses in. So they've essentially been stockpiling mass amounts of wild horses. I think in 2023, they rounded up over 20,000 horses from the range. And they try to adopt them out, but there's
and
only
that doesn't really work,
so much appetite. The horse market's very saturated. There's only so much, and there's a lot of squeeze right now financially. So asking people to take in a horse is a huge financial burden as well. And so they've just been stockpiling. And at this point, as Kris mentioned earlier, there's almost as many horses, if not as many horses, in long-term holding as there is on the range in the wild. And that's a huge financial problem for the program. It is extraordinarily expensive, and it's all taxpayer money to feed these horses and take care of them. And so we're asking for a switch. So right now, the horses are managed about 90% by helicopter, and at most 10% by on-range management, like fertility control. We want to switch that. We want it to flip. So we're managing horses on the range, which is significantly less expensive. It's fiscally responsible with taxpayer funds, because remember, we're all paying for this. That's where the money's coming from. And managing them on range so that you don't have to worry about, is there room in long-term holding? Is there appetite for horse adoptions? It eliminates that from the equation.
Okay, but is there enough room in Nevada, for example, to make that work?
I would argue yes. And so by starting fertility control, every foal not born is another one that doesn't need to be managed. It's one that doesn't have to go into the pipeline. It's one that doesn't have to be put through the potential trauma of roundups or anything like that. And actually, if you look at the legislation from 1970s, when the horses were first protected, they designated a certain amount of land for the horses. That land has been slowly stripped away from them. And so they go from a management area that is managed for horses to a herd management area that's managed for 0 horses. So they've actually lost over half the land they were originally designated. And so by reevaluating some of those lands, and if you have an area that's too high density, we can redistribute that population so that you have those lower density and you have those lower density impacts. And so I think there's a lot of on-range solutions that could be utilized.
Okay, so now, but would you literally take the horses that are corralled now and move them to?
No, I'm talking about just horses that are already on the range.
Okay,
horses that have been gathered already are already through that, and they've already been gathered. I'm talking about just horses on the range and solutions to lower the density on the range.
Okay, so Tracy, what happens to those horses that are corralled now?
That's a problem. And like Nicole was saying, it's the majority of their budget is going to sustain those horses of the Wild Horse and Burro program at the federal government level. That's where the majority of the money goes. We don't want to see more horses added into that. As it is, they're going to have to manage these horses. They're going to have to pay for those horses to live out their lives in those long-term holding facilities.
Do they have enough room to move? I mean, what are the conditions those horses?
Most of the long-term holding pastures that are in the Midwest are large pastures. I'm not saying that they're okay, but it's not ideal. I would rather see them on the range with their bands in their family units. So I would rather not see more horses going into that system of we're going to put them out on pastures. Frankly, those, the cows are actually by nature more designed for that pasture setting than they are the arid desert. But that's another subject altogether. What we want to see is to stop adding more horses into that system. If we stop now, eventually those horses will live out their lives and that system can stop. But that takes a switch in focus. It's a reallocation of resources, of skill sets to on-range management. And I don't expect anyone to just flip a switch and go, okay, tomorrow we're doing all this. It's going to take some time to transition over, but we've already got 45 plus AMLs that are at or below that appropriate management level, AML that Nicole was talking about. If we started those programs there now, that prevents those 45 from increasing. Ones that are over AML, you can still start fertility control and prevent it from going further over AML. That's this notion that's being stated over and over. Oh, you can't do fertility control till you get to AML. Yes, you can. Let's prevent it from getting worse. So I think there are steps that we can start taking now, that the government can start taking now. There are all sorts of resources out there willing to work with them on this, from nonprofits like us to veterans groups that are very interested in helping manage these Mustangs. There's, 86% of Nevadans feel like Mustangs are a defining symbol of the West. There's a lot of people out there that feel this way. So there's a lot of interest in these groups in contracting with the government to help start these programs and get them going.
All right, now I'm going to ask Kris to just chomp at the bit here in a second. Pardon the pun, because he wants to jump in. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. More on the wild horses after this.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Tracy Wilson, Nicole Hayes, and Kris Thompson on wild horses. Kris, I've had you held back here. I'm going to take off the reins.
The policy choice here is very clear. On the one hand, on the federal lands, they're going with the strategy of roundups and removals to reduce population. And that has resulted in 66,000 horses being held at any given time in federal corrals and holding areas for a cost of $157 million a year. And as a result, a lot of those horses that are gathered, they don't get the vet treatment correctly. There's a lot of them die just from injury or from other causes during the roundup. There was the video of a helicopter chasing a horse with a broken leg for 30 minutes before the animal was put out of its misery. And on the other choice, what these folks have proved in the Virginia range, which is under state control, is that you don't have to remove any horses. You go with the fertility control method that they have, and they've proven in the Virginia range it works. You go out there today, the horses are healthy. They live side by side with healthy bighorn sheep herds. We have a cattle a rancher from eastern Nevada that comes in every year. He's been there every year for 10 years, wintering his cattle there, and everybody is getting along and healthy and fine. So they've proven, and they're a volunteer group at no cost to the government. They've proven that their method, I think, is by far, it's a no-brainer that their method is more effective.
All right, let's take another break and we'll be right back.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
Welcome to the Winnemucca Big R.
Hi, I'm John Walker. Welcome to Big R Lovelock.
Hi, I'm Rich Martin. Welcome to Fallon Big R.
My name is Braden. Welcome to Big R Fernley.
Hi, I'm Kelly. Welcome to Big R Sparks.
We wouldn't steer you wrong with the gold standard of steaks at Joel's Chop House. Indulge in dry-aged steaks, seafood, Wagyu tomahawks, located on the second floor, and great views of the Strip.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're continuing our conversation with Tracy Wilson and Nicole Hayes of the American Wild Horse Conservation Group and Kris Thompson of Lance Gilman Commercial Real Estate Services. Tracy, the fiscal side of this and how it relates to the state and the federal government, if you can address that briefly.
Sure. So I think we have to look at the system currently in place of rounding up horses is a very instant gratification. We're over, we take them, we're back, the numbers are back down, but we've got to look beyond that. We've got to look long term so that we can maintain numbers at much less cost. That's the bottom line. It costs much less to maintain them on the range than it does to do it the way we're doing it.
We've had 3 governors who've been supportive of your efforts.
Correct.
What about the Department of Agriculture for the federal government?
So the federal government, actually, it's the Department of the Interior, so the Bureau of Land Management that runs the federal program. And I think what we are really pushing are these collaborative, fiscally responsible, humane solutions. And as Tracy said, we're not going to flip the switch tomorrow, but taking those steps, as she said, there's 45 HMAs, so areas of horses, that are at the level that the federal government wants them at. Why aren't we doing fertility control there and stopping additional births so that you hold the population where you want it? And instead, in 5 years, all those HMAs will be over again, and they'll have to round them up. And now, again, you're talking about millions of dollars spent to pay contractors to get the horses, and then millions of dollars to hold them in long-term holding. So they estimated that the cost of one horse in lifetime holding is just about $48,000 over the cost of their lifetime. Now times that by 66,000. And then they're planning on gathering 10,000 more next year. And so it's just this complete lack of fiscal responsibility in that way. And I understand that no taxpayer wants to see their money spent that way. And so here we're giving solutions that the actual dose to treat these horses is about $30 to $35. So you're talking about scalability across the range for millions of dollars less. And we're looking for those solutions that kind of everyone can get behind so that the government spends the money better and we can manage the horses on the range instead of off the range.
That's where we have to leave it for now. Thank you all very much.
Thank
and
you.
During the legislative session, please come back and let's talk more about it. And we'll be right back.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
For 50 years, Nevada Heating has been keeping people comfortable in their homes. At Nevada Heating, call the Do It Right guys and get the heat back on today. Call us today and we'll fix it today. That's the Nevada Heating way. Why freeze for days on end when Nevada Heating can get your furnace fixed today? Call us today and we'll fix it today at 323-5585 or schedule us on our website at nevadaheating.com.
It happens. And when it does, there's UMC Quick Care.
Snorkel personnel lifts are engineered beyond the industry norm to an uncommon level of safety and durability, and with an eye towards sustainability. They're also designed to be simple to operate and maintain. Snorkel, always at the cutting edge of progress.
Thanks for watching Nevada Newsmakers. We'll see you on the next broadcast.